No intro, straight onto the video. This video is based on the skill to reward ratio with 5 pieces of criteria being sustain, range, mobility, utility, and damage. Sustain refers to how much damage the support can absorb whilst holding or taking space. Range refers to the distance at which the support can pressure at. Mobility refers to the speed or movement the support can use to pressure with. Utility is basically any resource that isn't damage or healing, like space or attention. And damage is just how much pressure they can exert. I would add healing to this list, but it will be embedded throughout. Not to mention, heal botting is not going to help you rank up, especially in Overwatch 2. For clarification, we'll be starting off with the hardest hero to rank up with, and if you actually want to buy stickers of these cards to help support the channel, check the description. Starting off in 8th place, we have Mercy. Before I start critiquing Mercy's placement in last place, she does occupy a unique role in the game as a highly mobile pocket hero, and she can still work in Overwatch 2 by supporting your hopefully flanking soldier or sojourn, helping them land their kills. The utility of damage boost in Overwatch 2 is arguably even better than in Overwatch 1, considering that getting a single pick, which damage boost can help a lot with, is more impactful in 5v5. A 5v4 is easier to win than a 6v5. Her mobility in Guardian Angel also means that on maps which are quite open and flank heavy, like the new Esperanza map, Mercy can help her DPS feel unstoppable. However, that's as far as it goes. Mercy's value, as I've just described, is heavily dependent on the competency of your DPS, meaning you're not in control of whether you hit your shots or not, making Mercy harder to rank up with. If we talk about Mercy sustain for just a second, with the increase in flankers in Overwatch 2, and the fact that you have no means of defending yourself up against a Tracer or Genji or other flankers, once again means that you have no control or threat to use against that flanker. The best you can do is fly away and hope your team cleans up the flanker. This also ties into your lack of damage. The only source of damage you have is from your blaster, which you'll only bring out in either ditch case scenarios or in Valkyrie to Glock alone support or to Glock a static DPS like a Widowmaker. That's when you can kinda carry fights. However, those scenarios are few and far between, and the unique aspect of your kit, being your damage boost and resurrect, are partially dependent upon your team. And when you're trying to rank up, you want as many factors under your control as possible, like your own carry potential. Moving on to 7th place, I have Brigitte. Brigitte's strength lays in her being one of the tankiest and safest supports to play, and for those experienced with Brigitte, you'll know she's played for 2 reasons: to either threaten short aligned angles or to peel for her backline. I'll go through each playstyle and why, in Overwatch 2, due to her lack of stun, those playstyles are harder to pull off, thus Brigitte is a relatively hard hero to rank up with. In Overwatch 1, Brigitte's stun was pivotal to allowing her to threaten short sight-aligned angles. For example, on Dorado first point attack, you could threaten a soldier wanting to flank to the window, or in Rialto first point defense, you could threaten an Ashe wanting to coach gun up to that high ground. Now here's the interesting thing: even though your bash now does more damage, you actually deal less damage overall because you're no longer guaranteed your bash stun combo. If you don't know what I mean the stun, primary fire, whip shot combo. This actually means it's now harder to hold these angles, and you'll likely be using your bash for mobility rather than for lethality. Now for peeling, I don't even need to give an example. The stun removal means that heroes like Winston, Genji, Doomfist or Tracer can be a lot more aggressive and carefree with their engages, which you can no longer punish for. So hopefully I've explained how just the removal of your stun fundamentally affects how effective Brigitte is, not to mention the rally nerf, which provides green overhealth instead of armor. With this being said, Brigitte isn't all hopeless. She can still directly take angles through her sheer tankiness, or indirectly take angles with her repair packs to help support her DPS, and that's how you're going to win games with Brigitte in Overwatch 2. However, her relatively low damage compared to other supports higher up, and her limiting range and mobility limits her carry potential, making her one of the harder heroes to rank up with. After Brigitte, we have Moira. Now, Moira is actually a really interesting case going into Overwatch 2, because in Overwatch 1, she used to be one of the best heal bots in the game, but with one less tank in 5v5, and you're gaining 30% less ult charge when healing that tank, you'd think that Moira is dead in Overwatch 2, but what her saving grace is her own self-sustain and respectable damage, meaning with Moira, you're going to have to dual DPS and maybe even flank. You'd be utilising your self-heal of up to 95 healing per second with your heal orb to out-sustain enemy DPS in your duels, and then you can fade back to your tank to heal them. So for example, on Route 66 attack, you take a duel by the lorry, you hopefully win that duel and fade back to your one tank to heal them up. Your Coalescence can also be a very aggressive tool to punish overextending squishy heroes. With this being said, Kiriko may be a better and safer alternative to this aggressive playstyle, as I'll get onto later. The last thing I'll say is that I believe there needs to be more limit testing with Moira to see how truly capable of a duelist she can be. Is 95 healing per second enough to win a duel? Does she need another DPS to help her? Because if Moira isn't a competent duelist, then I can without a doubt tell you that her other playstyle of healbotting isn't gonna help you rank up. With almost zero utility to her name as well, whether she'll be able to have playstyles outside of being a healbot is up for debate. Next up, we have Honor. For those who might have watched my last video, you would have seen that the key to winning games on Honor is by leveraging your utility on angles, which is actually pretty easy to do because it doesn't require any crazy mechanics. But with Kiriko in the game, an aggressive nade no longer seems that threatening as Kiriko can just cleanse it, and that's why Honor is down a few notches. Aside from that, the only carry potential Honor has is with her biotic rifle, but at that point, she would just be a worse and harder to play DPS hero, even with her utility of sleep and nades. Whilst admittedly having high range stats, this also doesn't help her playstyle specifically. With all this being said though, nade and sleep dart are still very strong pieces of utility to either win out flanks or to put pressure on the enemy team. After Honor, we have Zenyatta. As you can see with just the card, Zenyatta is one hell of a glass cannon when it comes to Overwatch 2, embodying the idea of boom or bust or feast or famine. Zenyatta has one of the strongest pieces of utility in the game, being Discord, which I made an entire video on, and can single-handedly win out flanks for your DPS. But that's not even all. Zen's own damage potential is the highest in the support category, with Baptiste maybe being comparable to Zen. However, where Zen falters is his ability to sustain or completely escape against flankers, like Tracer or Genji. As we go higher up in the list, with names like Kiriko or Baptiste, they both have respectable damage numbers and enough sustain or mobility to either fight off or escape flank heroes. Right now as it stands, with flanks being more open thanks to 5v5, Zen can struggle fending off against highly mobile compositions, but the potential with Zen is still there. Orb your aggressive teammates, have cover, and try not to get caught off being isolated to help minimize those downsides. In third place, we have Lucio. Lucio packs in some of the most elusive and annoying movement in the game, being hard to fend off thanks not only to his high mobility, but his sustain, boop, and hitbox. A good Lucio will not only fend off flankers like Genji and Tracer, but he may even kill them. His speed and sound barrier are also good disengage tools for him and his team to escape things like Kiriko's Kitsune Rush or even a Nanoblade in some circumstances. So why isn't Lucio any higher? Well, that's because of difficulty. Keep in mind that this list takes into account both the reward the hero can get and the skill it takes to get that reward. In that case, Lucio, much like Tracer in my DPS list, has one of the highest rewards in Overwatch 2, but reaching that reward certainly isn't easy. In particular, your movement and mechanics are the hardest parts of your kit, meaning it can be a thin line between carrying and feeding. In runners up, I have Kiriko. In my Kiriko guide coming soon, her fundamental concept is called hyper-aggressive disengages. Essentially, as Kiriko, you take very aggressive positions, either by teleporting there safely or using your wall climb, and then you draw a lot of attention, maybe even using your protective Suzu, then you teleport right back to safety. For example, on King's Road third point attack, Kiriko could teleport straight to a Genji as long as he isn't on the brink of death, then throw a couple of kunai at the enemy team, aiming for the head, and if things get too hot, you just teleport straight back out. The best thing about this playstyle is how safe it is due to your teleports. Simply put, no other support in the game can do this, barring Lucio to some extent, and the best Kiriko players will of course be able to land critical hits with their kunai. The biggest struggle with Kiriko, and what prevents her from being number one, is, likewise to Lucio, the ease of her mechanics. Unlike Lucio, Kiriko does have easier movement, but her mechanical skill, especially hitting kunai to the head, is tough to do consistently. Her damage feels low and frankly pathetic if you're just hitting 40 damage kunais. Now in first place, by process of elimination, I have Baptiste. Really, it's Bap's accessibility as a hero, whilst also having a high skill ceiling that makes him worthy of first place. He has a decent healing output, a consistent and relatively high damage output, decent mobility to reach angles on high ground thanks to his exo boots, which actually function pretty similarly to Kiriko's wall climb, as well as having more sustain than the average support hero. That regen burst buff, where you instantly get 50 healing, has really helped Baptiste players perform more aggressive plays comfortably. Top level Baptiste players in Overwatch 2 will also have no issue maximizing their matrix to either help their teammates carry fights or just straight up carry the fight themselves. And I haven't even mentioned Immortality Field yet. Bap's biggest downside is that he prefers more clumped up comps to get the most out of his regen burst, immortality, and healing, meaning in split comps, a different hero might be better. However, his jack of all trades nature means that as long as you're not too split, you and your teammates can benefit from your utility and damage. Well, that's the video. Again, if you want to help support the channel whilst getting something in return, check out the Overwatch card stickers down below. Also, if this video helped to raise your IQ, be sure to share it with your friends to also raise theirs. Until next time.